Hey there, it's your pal, Bonnie Habian, and welcome to the Worth Knowing podcast. If you like a real-life story that features grit, grace, and a whole lot of gumption, then you're in the right place. Get ready to hear from some courageous women who talk about how pivotal, teachable, aha moments have reshaped their confidence and delivered opportunities they never imagined. It didn't happen by chance, of course. They figured out new, sometimes uncomfortable ways to put themselves out there in a way that shouts, they get it. You'll hear intimate stories with actionable takeaways and some very secret sauce. Because everyone has an important story worth knowing. And you know what? The world needs it, and you deserve it. Ever wonder what you are really worth in your job? And that's what we're going to be talking today about with a very great expert. Her name is Keri-Lynn Shaw. She is the CEO of a really cool kind of concept called salary bump. Now, we're not just here to talk about jobs and careers. We're here to talk about really important things that I believe is kind of impacting women in not such a great way. We're talking about how to negotiate when you start a job, when you're in a job, and most importantly, when you exit a job. Because you know what? According to Keri and to many experts, women are now leaving a lot of money on the table, and we don't want that. Right, Keri-Lynn?
Right, Bonnie.
It's great to have you. And I want to dive in because I got to tell you, I've been talking to my friends about my interview with you, and they're like very excited because I think this is a topic that not a lot of people really delve into. And I don't think women are that up to speed about the leverage and the ability they have. So let's talk about salary bump, first of all. What is it? I always think of baby bump, but I don't think this is anything related to the baby bump. It's the salary bump.
I contemplated the name very often. There was two things that came up, both pregnancy and apparently, according to my business coach, cocaine, which I had no idea about as a non-drug person. Yeah. So that's, I guess, what's called a bump. No, the point of it was I started it because I am a CHRO and chief HR officer, if you don't know what that means. I watched so many people over the years do it badly, do the interview badly and do the negotiation badly. And it wasn't just about what I saw, but statistically, less than 30% of women are negotiating. And I was one of those statistics for the first probably 2 decades of my career. And until I landed in HR and realized how much I had been leaving on the table, kicked myself. And everyone I meet today since launching this company says, KL, where were you 20 years ago? Where were you in my 20s?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think it is probably really a long past due, but that's okay because it's happening now. People are thinking about it more strategically. I think post-pandemic, it's probably made people think a little bit about things a little differently. But what is it with women in general? And again, I'm not trying to stereotype. I'm just saying you've created a business for this because you see it. What is it that they're not seeing their worth?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that they're not seeing their worth. I think there's a couple of things that come up. Number one, some people don't know that they can negotiate. So for my first early days, I didn't know I could. I got an offer. I was so excited about the offer. I said, yes. Woohoo, they want me. That's so nice. And I want the job. I had no idea I could negotiate. So that is an element that does exist. If you know you can negotiate, one of the biggest issues that women face is we are told that we are bad negotiators. I had been told for years, once I figured out I could negotiate, well, I'm not going to bother because women are terrible negotiators. So I guess I better not bother. Right. I tried it once in my maybe 5 years in, and I got turned down. And so from that moment on, I thought I was a bad negotiator. And so I didn't do it. And then there's a third reason. And that third reason stems around your relationship to money. Do you have a scarcity or an abundant mindset? Do you have the feeling, or do you listen to the noise, which is things like the market is so hard? Jobs are so scarce. You better just accept whatever you get offered. So they don't ask because they're coming at it from a place of scarcity and or fear of greed coming across. And if I am to negotiate, guess what? They might think I want the money more than I want the job. And for women, for many women, it was for me for sure, money wasn't my number one driver. But That doesn't mean I shouldn't get paid what I'm worth because I have financial goals. I want to travel the world. I have retirement goals, vacation homes, items I want to buy. So why shouldn't I get paid to match the things I care about? It's just that element of worry that, oh my gosh, they might think that I am caring more about the money.
Okay. And that's funny because I'm going to read this piece of paper here that I did a little research, and it said, here are some of the facts about women and why they are afraid to ask. Fear of being perceived as greedy. So you hit that one. Fear of rejection. We talked about that. Anxiety about their professional worth, worry about damaging relationships with management, and concern over potential job security. So you mentioned all of those things. And, I think that is very, very true, because if you ask for something and you reject it, which you would say that happened to you, then you worry, oh my gosh, now do they think less of me? What do we need to do with that mindset? And is that rational or not?
Rejection in general, you get burned. And of course, you're going to have a scar. You're going to have a bruise, and you're going to question the next time you go to take that action, whether it be dating, whether it be whatever it is, right? Rejection is hard. I think there's another piece that we didn't talk about, Bonnie, that's not on your list and not something that I mentioned. And that is, people don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to figure out what they're worth because we are not talking about this. We are not having regular conversations at a cocktail party. Hey, Bonnie, what are you making? We have to start normalizing asking our network, our friends, what should I be asking for? What should I be talking about beyond salary? Talk to me about bonuses. Talk to me about equity. It's really confusing. Can you talk to me about what it would look like if I were to go into a startup? These conversations, once we start normalizing them, it will help. But you doing your homework to understand what you are actually worth and what the market is paying is another big hole that we have to fill. And then we move into, how do you articulate it without coming across greedy or rude or something that they might interpret? Those are the things you can own, because that's all you can control. I can't control how you're going to react to my ask. And if you're going to react badly because I advocated for myself, then you are not my people.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit, because I really want the audience to take away some actionable items they can really take with them and put into practice. You know a lot about the points of negotiation. Talk to me about, I guess, maybe there's 6 or 7 parts in a job, starting a job, new title, if you're in a startup. What are sort of those 5 or 6 things you see where people are missing the opportunity or should start thinking about where those negotiations can happen in their career?
So a couple of different angles. Let me give you a couple of examples, Bonnie. Maybe that will be helpful. So I work with people CEO level to automotive technicians and everything in between. I've got a bunch of new clients that are just fresh getting their masters in their 20s who are already establishing this, which gets me so excited because they're not going to make the same mistakes we did. But I'm going to give you the example of the automotive technician, and I'll tell you why. Asking for a negotiation in a new job is different than getting a negotiation in an existing role.
And why?
So let's talk about both, because you have different leveraging power and the conversation is very different when you are inside an organization. So let me give you this example. This is a gentleman who got his master certification. In the automotive world, technicians are very hard to come by. There's fewer and fewer of them. And there's very few that hit that high level, which is a master certification. This gentleman loved his dealer network, loved his job so much, did not want to go anywhere, but said, Kale, I want more money. I said, okay, so let's talk about what that looks like.
And he's in a job. He's in a current job. He doesn't want to leave, but he wants more money.
Didn't want to leave, wanted more money. So
arbitrarily wants more money, or thinks he deserves more?
No, he got his master certification. And so that gave him an opportunity to say, boom, excellent point. I have a leverage power. You don't always have to have a leverage power to do it. But if you're going to do it, you want to come off like a huge project that you just had massive success on, or a reason that gives you that boost. So master cert, they don't want to lose him. They love him. He's one of the most beautiful humans from a personality standpoint and just an amazing person. So we said, all right, let's look at the package. What do you get paid today? X amount per hour. Okay. What about bonus? Yeah, I have a small bonus on X. Okay. What else? That's it. Said, all right, let's unpack this. Let's talk about a couple dollars more an hour. I did my research. So I do background research for everybody so that they have a good grounding of what the market is paying, and it pulls from a bunch of sources. So a couple dollars an hour more, I think we got them $4 or $5 an hour. Easy. Then we said, okay, let's look at the bonus structure. Do you like the structure? Yes, but I want more. I'm really sure, Kale, that if I work more, like I can perform better, but I want a bigger piece of that. So we co-created a bonus structure that was based on his performance. So there was no risk for the dealer. They pay him more the more he delivers.
Okay.
And then he also did he was so good that he would do training for other people. And so we got him paid on that as well, because that's taking him away from earning more, right? So we figured out a way to include that. Great. Let's talk about, you work for a dealership. We sell cars, right? Yes. Okay. So let's talk about a company car. Let's talk about insurance. Let's talk about gas. What do you pay per month? He was paying about $1,700 a month between his car payment, his insurance, and his gas. We got him all three. And then I asked him let's talk about healthcare. We pay right now $1,000 a month for me and my wife. Great. Let's add that sucker in there. We got him a 40% increase, all because of just being creative and talking to his leader about, I love it here. I want to grow here. I want a future here, but I also want to grow financially and continue my own growth and development. So can we talk about what that looks like? It took about 2 months to get it done because he had to go to the GM and it was a bigger dealer group. And the beautiful part is this co-created bonus structure got rolled out to the other master tech.
Wow. So he's a happy camper.
A bonus. Isn't he lucky? For free. He didn't even have to pay for my services. And so that's a really neat example. I'm going to pause there because it is a unique one, but what the point of the story is, there are so many beautiful creative ways to talk about what you care about. For me, I cared about an MBA early on, and I talked to my leaders about my growth and development, and I wanted to go back to school. They paid for my MBA. I wanted to become a professional coach. They paid for my coaching certification. I wanted to go to a seminar in London that, would help me grow. They paid for that. So all the things that matter to you, you put those on the table. That is where you get to be in a position where you feel valued, and it's about what you care about.
Yeah. And I also think probably from an employer, let's put on the employer and the employer hat a little bit. I don't know. Maybe those sorts of add-ins aren't as costly as a straight salary increase.
They're not.
Right. So then it's more palatable to them. But I do think what I want to kind of stress to everyone is maybe we need to stop thinking so much just dollars and bonus. Think of other ways. 100% healthcare, huge. You're right. That's an increase right there. You talk about going back to school. That's an investment. And that's an investment they're hoping you'll keep and use there. Right. So it's kind of a good thing. I know when I did this years ago, I was at a company that offered it, and you had to stay with the company, say 2-3 years after. That was no problem, because you know what?
Fair.
I was so happy and felt so valued to be able to get that degree. I mean, it was just a really great value add. And again, don't know, maybe they had a special arrangement with the school. I don't know. But you're right. People need to start thinking more creatively. Now, I want to pivot for a second and talk to you, because you've given us a couple of things to think about. You're in a job. I listened to you, and you brought up a story that was very interesting, that you actually went in because you were able to see what everyone was making, right? I think at some point, and you got to share that, because that's a really cool story.
So this is another example of being frustrated and feeling undervalued in an existing job. So I took over a role, Chief People Officer. As it turns out, in that role, the first thing I do is always an equity analysis. I want to see where we have holes in the organization, where we have issues, and where we need to close gaps. So equity, DEIB is extremely important. And on my watch, I want to be sure I know where I start and what I need to do to close the gap. So of course, I pulled the numbers. And in addition to that, we were rolling out an equity program for our executives. So I was developing that as their chief people officer. That's what I was working on as one of my first things. Ranking in order the executives. I was the only female board member, and I ranked all the executives beyond just the board members. And I presented it to my CEO, and my name was at the bottom of the list, ranking high to low. Not only was I the lowest on the VPs and above, but I was the lowest, obviously, and I was a board member. It was very clear to my CEO. He was totally embarrassed. There was a bit of a problem when they hired me. It was an external person that did it. There was no HR person. They didn't do an internal analysis. They just looked at what the other CHRO made, and they gave me that or gave me that range. So my fault for not negotiating heavier when I came in. So I negotiated, but not enough. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Which
Sure. You don't know. Yeah.
And I saw the numbers and thought, wow, I was mad at myself. And then I thought to myself, Kale, don't worry, because this equity play that we are going to roll out, we'll fix it. We'll fix it in my equity. We'll fix it in my salary. I'm a prove it kind of gal. I'll show you the money. No worries. As I'm building that out. So I showed it to my CEO. I didn't say a word and he was mortified. And he's like, Kale, we will fix this. I said, I know we will. Like, let's just get going. Like, let's rock and roll. We got work to do. So happy about that. And then the pandemic hit. And of course, there was so many other things that we needed to navigate. My role at that moment elevated to a level that was just extreme for anyone who was in HR during that time. I served an even greater role with my CEO. And as the pandemic was going on, 6 months in, 8 months in, my frustration level started to get so big because of what I was executing and what I was getting paid compared to my peers who really weren't doing a lot because we were getting goods shipped from China. And guess what? There was no goods being shipped. So I'm working my tail off and not getting rewarded. So I put together a blueprint of how I wanted to communicate and articulate this. And I went in sharing how I felt. I went in sharing the facts. I went in sharing what I wanted to see as a result. I barely got 2 sentences out and he doubled my salary on the spot, which meant, good day. I almost fell out of my chair, but that meant I was $150,000 more than the CFO, which anyone who is in an HR role knows that never happens either. So I was thrilled, but also pissed at the same time. It's like, I didn't even have to say, like, what? Like, that's so wrong. Like, what? That's something so wrong with our system that's all it took. And, I prided myself on what I delivered and how I showed up and how I delivered that conversation, because Bonnie, getting a double raise, doubling your salary in an existing role is extremely hard. It's much easier when you job jump because you can have different conversations around it. Like, there's not a lot of place to go. So I was really, really excited about it. And that was where that additional niche came up, because a lot of people don't think that they can ask for more in an existing role. It's that standard merit increase that you get every year. And I'm here to tell you that is not the case.
All right, so let's go to a couple scenarios. You're just starting, you're I don't know, 35, second job, and you are starting, you're like, okay, I'm going to this new job. I'm just going to take what they give me, or give me like 3 pointers that you should say, wait a minute, stop, think of this, that, and that, because you could probably get more.
Gosh. Okay. So first of all, the person on the other end is expecting you to negotiate. And when you don't, we're shocked.
Really? Even at lower levels?
Every single level, Bonnie. I've given thousands of offers and thousands of interviews, and most people do them both badly. So no, they just don't ask. The statistics are real. Less than 30% of women are asking, period. And there's another stat that might interest you. When you ask, 90% of the time you get more. You may or may not get exactly what you're asking for, but 90% of the time they say yes to something. So why would you not ask?
That's a very good point.
Point one.
That's even if you get health insurance or a car, right? That's something.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Point number one. Point number two is, when you exit an organization, you might be leaving something on the table. If you call me to come and join your I'll give you an example of myself. I left an organization end of October once. Bonuses are not paid till the following April, but I almost completed a full year from that company. I negotiated a full bonus as part of my sign-on. So I negotiated a massive sign-on bonus that I would have gotten because I left it on the table. There's sign-on bonuses. In this case, director level and above, I also highly recommend you negotiate severance in your package. Because of the volatile market that we're in, you should always be
excellent point.
Yourself.
Excellent
That's
point.
That's a leverage point.
Something, right?
I left a car on the table. I worked in automotive. I never had a car payment in my life. I left a car, insurance, and gas on the table. Guess what? That was added to my salary. So there are so many levers that you have to pull that when you start having the conversation around compensation, you're asked about salary, but you should be talking about comp. Comp is that bigger package picture.
Which is all of those things, correct?
All of those things. There's so many things on that table from exec coaching. Many of my clients that I work with on the salary bump negotiate me as part of their package so we can do 6 month, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month coaching.
Right.
And their company pays for that as part of their package. And a lot of my clients also come to me to say, I want to grow in my current organization, or I just want to grow. will get me paid for by their companies too, because that's part of a negotiation. Asking is first and foremost doing your homework, making sure you know what the market is paying is also just so important. You need to get grounded to what is actually out there.
All right. Now you've talked about two great examples, starting a new job, kind of when you're in a job. Let's talk about the one that people miss. And I really am so excited to hear how you're going to talk about this. It's you're exiting somewhere. And let's give a little bit of an example. Okay. You're a 20-year employee. You've worked your way up from, I don't know, mid-level role to a senior level role. You're starting to feel, I feel like I'm going to be getting pushed out. This is not going well. What do you advise people to do? They probably are going to go somewhere else. Maybe they're thinking about where they're going or they're thinking their next steps, but they're not thinking about how they're going to transition. Tell me what they should be thinking and what is possible, because really that employer doesn't have to give them anything unless they've negotiated it 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I will tell you as a CHRO every day, and I mean this, and I'm not alone. I know this is happening inside every organization. I am talking with business leaders, heads of business units about how we cut costs. I mean, every day.
Every day.
We are looking at operations. We are looking at open headcount. We are looking at skills we need for the future. We are looking at where we are behind the 8 ball. We are looking at how are we going to possibly hit our targets this year? And I'm coming at it always from a people perspective.
Correct. Right.
Right. So I know these conversations are happening every day. You know they're happening every day because you see the earnings results.
Correct.
You see
right?
that your CEO just announced either to shareholders or inside, we had a really rough quarter. You see that 6 months ago, they just did a slew of layoffs. You saw last year layoffs that they did. I can almost guarantee you that every company is having these conversations on the daily. And what happens is they ask the CFO to pull the P&L and sort the line items, highest to lowest. And guess what line item is the biggest line item in the P&L? My personnel budget, my headcount budget.
Yeah.
Automatically, they go right to that big bucket and they say, guess what? We got to do a haircut. We got to cut.
Yeah.
We got to cut heads, because there's part of that is laziness, because they don't want to look at the operations and where we're spending grossly, because I've done that work too. It's easier for them, in air quotes, to just lay people off. And then you saw that happen a lot after the pandemic with the overhiring and then like this readjusting, and you saw like salaries were high. So it's a really delicate balance of having the right people, the right number of people, the right cost ratio to your revenue and your profit. So it's a conversation happening every day is how I want to lay the groundwork on.
Right. Every day, this dynamic.
This is behind the scenes
going on all the time of swirls. So you need to almost think about kind of what you're trying to say. There's lots of noise. And you, as that spoke that could be just chopped, needs to think about.
Well, the reason I preface this answer with that is because if you come to me and say, I saw the earnings results, I know times are tough, I want to throw my name in the hat. I know it's a little bit unconventional, but I want to throw my name in the ring for a package. I recognize that, you may or may not even need my role in the future. I've given that some thought too, if you want to talk through that. But I think it's time, and I would greatly appreciate a conversation about what a package could look like.
That is a great idea. That's proactive. That gives them an out, right? And that gives you some leverage to perhaps have a landing that's going to allow you to go someplace better.
Well, here's the thing, Bonnie. You might have just saved someone else's job. Number one, they have been giving packages out. Most companies have been giving packages out, so they know what the package calc is. For director and above, usually I would try for a 1 month for every year served, and below that, 2 weeks. So I'll tell you 2 really cool examples. I just worked with 2 amazing women. One who smelt something didn't quite feel right, was very long tenured, 30 plus years.
That's hard.
Was like, I think it's time. All right, let's put you in the driver's seat of that conversation so you don't end up getting fired. Because that's a different grieving process. You in the driver's seat to have this conversation is very different. So we got her in the driver's seat, loaded her lips on how to have this conversation. She went to her boss, had a very clear, very direct conversation. The boss said, yep, it's time. We'll come back to you with some thoughts. Didn't talk numbers, didn't talk money. It was just a wonderful conversation. She called me. It went really well. I can expect something in my inbox in the next day or 2. Great. We ended up negotiating $2.3 million, Bonnie. We
That's
got
awesome.
1 month for every year served, plus full bonuses, plus coaching for me, plus grandfather lifetime healthcare benefits.
My gosh, that's huge.
We went to the complete wall. I mean, it was so great. And the neat part about it was she said to her and her husband were navigating this process throughout. And he was, of course, fighting for her. And it was so cute over the holiday. He said, I printed off the 7 grieving steps. And I know like over the holidays, like, let's talk through these steps. And she said, honey, I love you. And you're so sweet, but I don't need these steps. I feel like $1 million.
Yeah. Because she,
and in the driver's seat,
that's
the conversations, she did it with grace, with elegance. Amazing. So that's story number 1. Story number 2 is a woman who hired me to help her negotiate her new potential offer. She was just in the interview stage, but she felt like they want me.
What level? Give me an idea of where she is.
It was an SVP moving into a C-suite role.
Okay.
So helpful, just contextually, depending on your level, the dollars will look a little different, and also your time frame that you've been with the company. But in this case, she was excited about the opportunity, loaded her lips on how to not back herself into a corner. So she brought me in early enough. Great. We negotiated a beautiful package, 5,000 more base, 315,000 sign-on bonus because of some stocks. And they were future stocks. They weren't even things she was leaving on the table. So that was amazing in itself. Me for coaching, a few other items, beautiful package. And as we were in the beginning stages, I said, okay, so let's talk about your exit package. She's like, what exit package? I said, we're going to get you an exit package too. You were 17 years with your company, right? Yeah.
Right.
We got her $425
Yeah.
exiting. So she just paid for her kids' college with a proactive, she already had another job. She just raised her hand and said, hey, I think it's, you overlooked me for the chief marketing officer job. No hard feelings, but that I'm really excited to grow. And I think my time's up here, and would love to just see what that looks like for you. And, I actually don't think you even need my role anymore. So can be elevated.
Right.
Already.
Right.
So you can actually save my salary. What could that look like? Market's paying about a month for every year I've served. That equals X. And that's the kind of conversation.
Amazing. Yeah. That's the kind of conversation. All right, everyone, and I call them my pals, my friends here on the show, think a little bit out of the box, right? I mean, you're giving some real life examples of things that you've experienced that you've actually seen work. May not work for everyone, but you got to think about it. If you don't ask, you do not get. And if you don't think strategically on both sides, you're leaving that money on the table. Let me go to this. I recently read, I told you before we started to talk, kind of tape the show. I just read in the Wall Street Journal, there's a new phenomenon happening called revenge quitting. And to me, not smart, right? What are you going to do? People do it out of emotions. Totally get it. But what is your thought about that whole phenomenon?
Well, first of all, I hadn't heard of it. So I will be writing a post about it next week or doing some TikTok video about
Wall Street Journal this week.
I will find it. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I get it.
I do too.
You are angry. You are frustrated. You feel so undervalued, and you want to give your company the finger. I get it. I'm going to show you, screw you, ciao, ciao, I'm out. You can deal with the aftermath. I understand it, but it is a very bad move because, again, there are so many different ways to position this conversation. It's all bespoke based on your situation. Like there could be a million reasons why you are so frustrated. Well, we're going to talk through those. In some cases, it might be a very serious situation where we get a lawyer. In other cases, we just have a really beautiful, graceful conversation to say, listen, I think you know how I feel. I think it's time, and let's talk about what that looks like, and would really appreciate it. And, the worst they can say is no. You were already going to give them the finger anyway. The worst case scenario is they say no. And I have not had a single company say no in this conversation. They might negotiate the dollar amount, but there is absolutely zero reason, why you should not be asking for an exit package.
Okay, this has been extremely insightful, and I know that this is going to open a lot of eyes. It really is, and it's just a very great, great conversation. But I want to leave my pals, my friends, with 3 tips that you would give in any sort of negotiation stage of all of these various kind of levels and times and places we talked about. 3 tips that they need to keep in the back of their mind so they don't leave money on the table during their career.
First, know your worth. Know you are worth it. You have so much to offer. So know that first. That's a mindset thing. You've got to work on that. In any case, mindset is one of the most important factors. Second, do your homework. Do not walk in not being able to answer the question, what are your salary expectations? Don't back yourself into a corner. Always talk in ranges and make sure you've done your homework and you're normalizing this conversation. That is huge. And then the last thing would be ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
Walk through that door. And I'll say one quick one. And Bonnie, this is important because when you think negotiation, a lot of people have a negative connotation with it, which is there's a winner and a loser. I know from watching Law and Order or any legal show that there's always a big loser. And that is an aggressive style. That's not my style. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I like to talk to my people before they walk in to create a win-win environment. The idea is you want me, I want you. Let's position this and create a win-win for both of us so we both feel valued. How are we going to do that? That is such important advice that hopefully takes down a little bit of the anxiety that a lot of people have.
Well, you know what? I love how you said the number one, know your worth, because that is just what this show is all about. Know your worth. Each and every one of us is worth knowing. And if you want more information about KL, you can look in the show notes. I have all of our information there, and she has some great posts. She's always putting some videos. I've learned a lot from her, and I think you will too. And until next time, my friends, I want you to keep chasing those aha moments, the kinds that really change the world and make a difference for others. Each and every one of you are worth knowing. Until next time, have a great day.